Hey gals and guys, I'm the meat popsicle behind Armoured Brownies, and this is my latest time-lapse sculpt. I thought I'd share this with you. This is a sculpt for a LARP character of mine, and this mask was supposed to strikingly resemble SHODAN from System Shock 2. But of course, there's only so far you can really go with that, since you only ever see SHODAN in the game as a 2D model. So, unless you count the little spoilery bit at the very end. But let's not get into that. So, the whole idea was to create something that looked very cyberpunk, very sci-fi, because my character is an AI. Well, a sprite AI, basically a holographic projection of an AI. So, I didn't have an awful lot to work with apart from this 2D image. So it was a case of just trying to make a mask that would fit, have the right kind of uncanny valley qualities about it, and then accessorize it in such a way that it did resemble SHODAN. But then an awful lot of that came from the actual painting and finishing, and the fact that I decked it out in L wire and then lots of braids and wires coming off the back of it. I was quite happy with how it came out, but this whole mask was sculpted in wet clay, so it's water-based clay, and then I did a silicone mould of it to create a polyurethane mask. The sculpt itself is unfortunately not too impressive, I don't think, because it's a fairly simple thing to sculpt, a fairly basic thing. But it was a nice learning curve for doing lips again, which apparently are my bane, and actually feeling I had gotten the cheekbones and the the eyes correct, even though it was supposed to look quite robotic. I felt they went quite well. The nose I felt lacked a bit, but then again, nose is just, human anatomy is hard. I'm not a trained sculptor. I'm making this up as I go along. I'm just trying to make mud look like other things. This mask was sculpted not too long before the actual event it was supposed to be used in, I did all this the weekend before. So I didn't have that long to actually work on the different parts and smooth it out properly. The way that this actually suffered the most was in the mould making, as unfortunately I've got no proper images of it because I rushed the whole thing, but the actual mould I made for this mask turned out to be probably the worst silicone mould I've ever made, even worse than my first one, so, you know, swings and roundabouts. I'm planning on redoing the entire thing eventually. At this point, I've let it dry overnight, so I have a more solid surface to work on, which means, in theory, I can actually smooth it down a bit better and have a bit more control over the clay, because wet isn't very resistant when it's first wet. And then from there, I can then actually, when it's got a little bit more resistance for it, I can put in the non-sculpted elements, like all of these solid bits, some wires, some conduit. Conduit is fantastic stuff. If you ever wanted to know what the stuff you see on sci-fi costumes, the big sort of ridged tubing, that stuff's called conduit, and you can buy it by the 5 and 10 meters, and it's super cheap, and it makes everything look sci-fi. It's fantastic. And then right here at the end, I'm digging big bold holes in it that the L wire will be able to run down. And that is basically the whole sculpt. This is it after being varnished and sealed, so I could take the moulds from it. I haven't got any pictures of the mould, however you'll see the first casting from it, and just when I say it is a horrid mould, you can see all the bubbles and nasty bits. Here is it smoothed down a bit with the eyes cut. The eyes are a lot bigger than in the original because, well, I have to be able to see. And then we've got a lot of airbrush work went into it to put some nice highlights and shades and silvers. And then some hand painting. And then I hot glued all the L wire to it, and I love it. It looks so good. It looked so good in the field. And then we had the final mask with the dreadlocks and the L wire going down the dreadlocks, and I was so happy with the mask, and I'm really happy with how it worked out with the goggles going behind it. I'd like to thank Charlotte Moss of Charlotte Moss Photography for actually providing me with the photo of my finished costume, and I hope you all enjoyed this and will join me next time. Bye!